Okay, I want to say good afternoon to those who are joining us. What we are going to do is I know it does take a while for people to filter in from their sign-in, so we'll give it a bit of time for people then the attendees to drop in. And while that's happening, I'm just going to kind of go through what the kind of outline of the afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you're watching this webinar from, is going to be. Okay, well, my name's Ben Ambrose. I'm the Managing Director at Medical Doorway. I think some of you might have actually been at our event over the weekend. Susanna, who's actually here from Charles University First Faculty in Prague, was at that event as well. And the promo video is actually now being finished today. So that's going to be released later on our YouTube channel. The purpose of this webinar really was following on from our school visits in the UAE last month, or earlier this month, I should say. They were fantastic, and we were asked by many of the schools that we couldn't visit, as well as a number of parents, to actually offer a webinar for those who couldn't see us in person in the UAE. However, we have opened this up to everyone else as well around the world who perhaps wants to drop in and listen to what we're going to talk about today. We do have a presentation, as I'm allowing more people to come in. The presentation will last around about 30-35 minutes. That is predominantly going to focus on the work of Medical Doorway and the different university options that the students who we met last month can apply to. And then, due to popular demand, we do have Susanna here from the First Faculty of Medicine, because there are Charles University entrance exams taking place both in the UK, Hong Kong, and the UAE through Medical Doorway. And we want to give people the chance to ask questions about those, because sometimes people have very specific questions that we can't cover in a generic presentation. Having Susanna here as the kind of lead person at the First Faculty of Medicine is fantastic. Okay, so more people are coming in all the time, which is fantastic. We do have the Q&A feature active as well. So if you have a question, it doesn't matter when that question comes into your mind, please just type it in to the Q&A feature, which is active. We're not using the chat feature, okay, because we want to try and keep all the questions and answers in one place. So the Q&A feature is active. Just pop your question in there. And what we'll do is at the end of the presentation, we'll deal with all of your questions one by one to make sure you get the right information, both from myself and Susanna, if it's specific to Charles University. Okay, we'll start the presentation now, and then as more people join us, they can kind of jump on the presentation as and when they join us. If you need to leave earlier today, that's not a problem. This video, as I said, is being live streamed on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you want to catch up with it after today, you can go and watch the replay on YouTube as well. So without any further ado, if it's okay, Susanna, I'm going to pull up the presentation, and that should take us around about 30 minutes to go through some generic information for the people joining us today. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone, pull up the presentation, and we should be ready to go. Fantastic. So this is the exact same presentation with a couple of minor edits that we gave when we were visiting the schools in the UAE earlier this month. As I said, if you have any questions on anything, there's no need to wait till the end. Just pop it into the Q&A feature and we'll be able to deal with it when we get to that part of the afternoon. So we'll talk a bit about Medical Doorway, who we are, what we do, and then some of the reasons why people have been choosing a variety of places to study medicine as opposed to the UK. We use the UK as a benchmark, really, because traditionally that's where people look to study medicine in the past. But now more people are looking further afield, and we're going to look at some of the data which tells us why more people are making those decisions. Then we're going to look at how you would go about choosing the right kind of a university to match your profile and requirements. Then we're going to look at some university options and talk about some of the ways that you would apply and get selected for those programs, as well as the things that you've got to consider when transitioning from where you are now as an applicant to medical school in the UK or Europe or further afield. So our job at Medical Doorway is to help you find the right fit for you, for your sons, your daughters, as a medical student. And there are so many features of that, which we'll go through over the next slide. But once we've helped find that best fit, we will then assist in making that decision and going through the full process of application, selection, and we're going to talk about selection because different universities implement different selection strategies, and then discuss how you would then get from acceptance through to enrollment at university, because that's just the start of what will be a long journey towards a future career as a doctor or dentist. Once we've identified the right list of programs, we're here to arrange the application. We are directly appointed by the universities to do that. And as I said, Medical Doorway run entrance exams for the universities that have the entrance exams in the UK, Hong Kong, and the UAE. In a second, something's come up on my screen. Let's go back. Sorry about that. And then once you've been accepted, go through all the necessary paperwork, make sure that you're ready for your visa application. So when it comes down to the final steps, you're ready to apply for your visa, move to your new country, and start studying at medical school. Now, if we look at what's been happening over the last few years, this is the trend in the United Kingdom of applications to UK medical schools. And you can see there was a big jump in both 2021 and 2022 on top of the gradual increase in the number of applicants from medical school from 2017 onwards. There has been a slight reduction this year, but it is a minimal reduction. There are still far more applicants than there are seats available. In fact, we have 7,000 to 7,500 seats available in the UK total. Of those, only a few hundred are available to international students. And as you can see, around about 5,000 to 7,000 international applicants per year, and in total about 30,000 applicants for 7,500 seats. So the issue here is the competition for seats has never been as fierce, so more students are looking further afield. For international students, the actual demographics are even more competitive. With Britain leaving the European Union, our European citizens are now international applicants if they're applying from outside the UK. So the number of seats hasn't increased, but the number of applicants for international students certainly has. So regardless of where you study, you can study your degree in English, have a globally recognized qualification. In fact, Charles University, who are with us today, are one of the most widely respected and widely recognized programs, including in California, for example. But you will be studying alongside a whole range of international students. Okay, if you study in somewhere like the UK, Cyprus, in the Caribbean, you'll be on an English language program in an English language country. But if you're studying, say, with Susanna in the Czech Republic, you'll be on an English language program in a non-English speaking country. And in places like the Czech Republic, they have 2 degrees, one taught in Czech for the local students, one taught in English for the international students, and they are parallels because they're identical in every single way, except the language in which they are taught. If you are thinking about applying as an international student, say to the UK, you will find the tuition fees are about £45,000 or more, and you can find cheaper than that if you go somewhere like continental Europe. And regardless of where you want to work, you're definitely on the right degree because there's a shortfall of trained doctors in every developed economy. And as you'll find, having a medical qualification means you can travel the world and have opportunities to work perhaps in places you wouldn't have thought about before. But it is a significant commitment. You will be at medical school or dental school for the next 5 to 6 years. And it is an expensive program, and it's right. And over that length of time, you need to plan your budgeting as parents appropriately to make sure that you're going to be comfortable in affording tuition fees and living costs for the duration of the study. I've put cultural differences as a challenge. This can actually be an opportunity for you to kind of grow as an individual and as an aspiring doctor, although you will have to get used to new systems of working, a more what we call adult system of education. And in addition, if you go to a country where English is not the first language, you'll be learning a new language during your studies to help you communicate with patients when you come to the clinical stages of the program. And we have a slide which specifically deals with the curriculum in that regard. But don't limit yourself. I said this to my British students who are thinking about coming to the UK. You will have a qualification which is globally mobile. So you might find that you want to work somewhere else at some point after the 6 years, or even stay in the country in which you've studied. We've had many students who've actually settled down in, say, the Czech Republic or another country after they have graduated. So let's think about how we go about choosing your medical school. And I say there are 4 main factors in determining your admission. Number 1 is, does your education profile in terms of subjects at the CBSE or the A-level or the IB or whatever curriculum you're taking, does that match what the university wants? Some universities have very hard set requirements, some don't. And next thing, what do you want from a university? Now, this is extremely important, but it's not perhaps as black and white as dealing with your education background. Do you want a specific ranking, or do you want a university in a particular location? Are you wanting to be in a capital city location in a large university, or would you rather be in a smaller university town where you can walk everywhere to get to your lessons and your accommodation, etc.? It really is a question of matching you to the right kind of environment we're going to be in, because as you'll see, the curriculums themselves will not differ too much, but finding the right environment for you for the next 6 years can often be the factor which leads to success or failure. We've had a student, as I said, and I've used this example so many times before, we've got a student from Hong Kong who had an option to go to Charles University in Prague or Nicosia in Cyprus, and he eventually chose Cyprus because he felt the climate was going to best suit his mental health while he was studying at medical school for the 6 years. And don't underestimate budget for annual tuition fees and living costs. We do get people who can afford a variety of universities across the world, but some people need to have a university which is going to mean that they can stretch their finances that little bit further, but still have still be comfortable in terms of affording their tuition fees and living costs in the places in which they're choosing to study. And the last thing is, where do you want to work after you graduate? Now, most of our students are thinking about working in the UK or the US, and all the programs we're going to talk about today have that ability, but most programs that you will qualify from when you go to another country will have to require you to take a licensing exam. And the most common ones is the USMLE if you want to work in the United States, or the Medical Council of Canada qualifying exams if you want to work in Canada. And from 2024, even if you study in the United Kingdom, you'll have to take on new medical licensing assessment exams. Now, different universities adopt a very different methods of how you apply and how you get selected. And we're going to use this slide and change it a little bit before we move on to talking about the universities. But some will utilize aptitude tests like UCAT or BMAT, or give you an option of taking that. Others still have a paper-based exercise. However, most European programs will utilize a form of entrance exam and a form of interview. We're going to look at two different groups of institutions. We're going to look at ones that have a mirror to the UK and ones that have a different system altogether. So taking that apart and applying it to the other programs, like those in the UK, you'll find that you make your application. And for some of the programs, an aptitude test will be required, usually UCAT. You'll have your personal statement, you'll have your reference, predicted grades, and then you'll have an interview. And if you're a high school student, if you'll get through that part of the procedure, you'll be made a conditional offer, and a final decision won't be with you until you've sat your final high school exams, if you have yet to sit them, or if you are a gap year student, perhaps then your offer would be unconditional. But if we look at options, say in the Czech Republic, their system is very different. They do have an application, they do require a personal statement, and then you'll have an entrance exam, which will take you to the interview, or in other faculties' cases, entrance exam and interview combined together to form a decision about if you're admitted to medical school. And in this case, you'll see there are no actual conditions, because this offer effectively becomes unconditional, provided you've graduated from high school and have the legal ability to enter university from your high school qualification. So we've gone from systems in the UK where you are assessed and then it's all down to your final high school grades, to a system where they have a separate, and I call it secularized, entrance exam and interview, which is separate from your high school education, and your admission is based on that particular set of procedures. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, with that in mind, we're going to talk about some university options that perhaps you can still apply to this year for 2023 admission, or if you're a gap year, if you're a student who's thinking about next year, the same procedures will apply then as well. So as an international student, you can still apply to study medicine in the UK. You can study in London at Brunel University in London. And as you'll see from the IB and A-level results, a lot more achievable than perhaps some of the other programs you may have already applied for through UCAS. And this application is outside of UCAS. It's a fifth option for you as an international student to apply to medical school in the United Kingdom. But perhaps you thought the UK is a bit expensive and perhaps not as attractive as I wish. You can study a British degree in Malta. Again, this is outside of UCAS. So you've got your 4 options in UCAS that you've applied to. We now have 2 more that you can apply to outside of UCAS. The Queen Mary programme in Malta is identical in every single way to the programme in London. It's €32,000 a year. So as an international student, marks a significant saving. And you can even intercalate and extend the course by 1 year and do 1 year in London. But as you can see, it is, again, the same entry requirements, and you do need a UCAT. There's no difference in terms of how they accept you for this program compared to the program in London. The big difference is the price and also the location in which you're going to study. For those students who perhaps don't want to be in one place, St. George's University in Grenada, we have got applicants from the Middle East right now and from the UK applying for this program. And one of the attractive propositions about this is you can do the first 2 years, if we start off where it says year 3 here, because this is where IB, CBSE and A-level students would start. You can do the first 2 years in the UK, 1 year at the main campus, which you just saw in the Caribbean, and then your clinical placements can be split across the US and UK as well. So you get a big blend of clinical experience before you then enter work after you've graduated from SGU. Or perhaps you want to be somewhere more local if you're from the Middle East. You've got the University of Nicosia in Cyprus, increasingly popular. It's a UK style curriculum, but at tuition fees less than 50% of what you'd be paying in the UK. And for those that perhaps aren't ready for medicine, you can actually do a pathway similar to the American pathway in the UK, where you have a 3-year degree in applied medical sciences or medicinal biochemistry, which leads directly on to the 4-year degree program. We have that opportunity here in the UK at Swansea. So what we've talked about already are 5-year pathways in Brunel, Malta, and the Caribbean, 6-year pathways in Cyprus, and a 7-year pathway, which is a pre-med to medicine pathway at Swansea University in the UK. But we're also got a lot of interest, and we get a lot of applications from all around the world to the Czech Republic medical schools. And why? Well, the Czech Republic is considered one of the elite destinations in which to study medicine across the world. Both First Faculty of Medicine in Prague especially has got Californian accreditation. It's also got US federal loan approval. So we do have American passport holders studying in Prague on US federal loans. We have a host of hospitals in the UK that visit these universities, and most of our graduates who are coming out of these programs do have conditional job offers months before they've graduated from medical school. But for those that were on the presentation a bit earlier, when you saw the slides that we have, their application procedure is quite different. What's not different, however, is the style of curriculum. Most medical programs across Europe have a traditional medical curriculum. And this is similar to, I think I've taken this one from one Czech university, I can't remember which one it is, but they're all very similar. You'll have first 2 to 3 years being preclinical to clinical sciences. And in those first 2 years, you will also learn how to speak the local language as part of the program. Now, some people find that potentially daunting. In fact, all of our students sail through that part of the program very, very easily. They tend to find that it's much more tough to study anatomy and biophysics than it is the local language when they're living in that other country. But as you progress through the program, you will gradually go from learning about the normal to applying the abnormal. So the normal liver, what happens when you have a pathology of the liver or the lungs, for example. And then as you progress from years 4, 5, and 6, you will spend an increasing amount of time in the clinical environment, eventually taking your state exams and then having the license to practice medicine and the title of MUDR in front of your name. Now, as we discussed on the earlier slides, applications to the Czech Republic are very different than, say, the programs in the UK, Caribbean, etc. Admission is based on largely an entrance exam, and this is one of our entrance exams that we run, our smaller entrance exams that we ran for the First Faculty of Medicine in London prior to COVID, moving them online, and now we are returning to in-person exams because they are by far the best way to assess students. So we run them in London, Hong Kong, and the UAE, and all the dates are on the Medical Doorway website, and I'll mention a few of them when we go through the part of the presentation. But you will have an entrance exam, which is multiple choice, biology, chemistry, and a paper that is often labelled as physics, but when you look at it, it's very much more like applied mathematics, and near enough all of our applicants have maths as a third subject at A level, or as maths in the IB at standard level. We tend to find that the students do not struggle with that exam if they've come from those curriculum. Following the entrance exams, you may then have an interview. That interview can be a different form. It can be an MMI style or panel-based interview. We'll discuss the specifics when we get to those universities. But in those particular cases, It's the entrance exam and interview itself, which is used to determine if you're accepted to medical school. And at Medical Doorway, for all of our applicants, we provide our online access called Czech Test Prep to get you ready for those exams. They are not going to kind of guarantee to pass you or anything, because what's the bread and butter of your preparation for your exams is your high school education. What the Czech Test Prep does is refine your knowledge and perhaps patch up certain gaps which are not covered on an A-level or IB curriculum, which might appear in the entrance exams. And following that, we do over Zoom offer MMI preparation as well. I used to interview students for medical programs in the UK. So as a result, I have got experience in helping students prepare for interviews. And it's not so much about answering the questions, it's about making you reflect on the type of question being answered and the strategies you need to put in on the spot to be able to address the problems that you are going to face in those particular interviews. So if we refer to First Faculty of Medicine, which is the one we've been talking about and from Susanna's from, this is one of the oldest medical schools in the world. As I said, it's got Californian accreditation, US federal loan approval. The Vice Dean is actually a British surgeon who did his first degree at the First Faculty of Medicine and his second degree in dentistry from King's College London. And their exam in the Emirates is going to be on the 18th of March at the one of the GEM schools in central Dubai. Everything's being confirmed. Alternatively, if you're going to take the exam in another location, we have the exam at the end of May after the IB exams in Hong Kong. We also have 2 exams in London, one at the end of April and one at the end of end of June after A-level exams have finished. And there's no trick questions on these exams. It's there to assess your knowledge. And in the case of the First Faculty of Medicine, if you pass the exam, you then are shortlisted for the interview, and it's the interview itself which determines if you are made an offer to study at this prestigious medical school or not. On the day after, on the 19th of March, we also have the entrance exam for Charles University Second Faculty of Medicine. Now, some people may be asking, what's the difference between First Faculty and Second Faculty or Third Faculty? The way I describe it, it's a bit like colleges of Oxford or Cambridge. They're made up of different parts. And then you don't study at the university, specifically you study at a particular college of the university. There's a bit more history to that. That's probably too detailed to go into in this brief presentation, but effectively it's 2 different medical schools under the same university banner. We're doing the exam for Second Faculty on the 19th of March, and there's also an exam in Hong Kong and an exam in London in late June as well. So if you want to apply to both of these faculties, and you can take the exams in those different locations. Now, the exam for Second Faculty is still very similar to First Faculty. It's biology, chemistry. There is this paper that they call physics, which, like we said, is more like applied maths. They'll also do some non-verbal reasoning and follow that up on the day with an interview. And if you pass the interview and the exam in this particular case, you'll be made an offer to study with the Second Faculty of Medicine from September 23, or if you're applying in 24, from then. Now, for the Emirates exams, there are some costs that you need to bear in mind. Each university has an application fee, which I roughly estimate is about £35, and then you have to pay the exam fee. Why is there an exam fee? Well, we run the exams in different locations, so we have to fly the staff, the resources to those locations. But the idea is to make it cheaper than sitting the exam or in the Czech Republic and flying to the Czech Republic and sit the exam there. For those students who are on, or parents who are on, who are from a GEMS school, under an agreement with GEMS, there is a reduction of 25% on the exam fee, and our support, Medical Doorway support, to get you from applying, preparing and arriving in country, having your visa, etc., is completely free of charge. We have actually worked directly with the embassies, both in London, Hong Kong and the UAE. We have relationships with the staff there, so we know what paperwork needs to be processed and the timelines. So we take care of all of that for you. So all you have to focus on is preparing for the exams, and then your IB, A-levels or CBSE or US high school diploma or whatever curriculum you are taking. But if you get through that process and you choose any of these programs, you will become one of the many hundreds of international students we have helped, actually thousands of international students we have helped over the years go on to study medicine or dentistry at a variety of universities across the world. Where possible, we do advise our students to visit the program, visit the city before they actually enroll, whether you turn up a week earlier, if possible, or you take a trip a few months earlier to actually see the town. We can help arrange all that for you. Why universities have accommodation. Some students prefer to have their own accommodation. We help with that. And in the case of things like health insurance, which is required for a visa application, we have all the links ready for you to do that in a seamless way. But perhaps you could become some of our students who've graduated. I'm looking at this picture here, Atta, who's just graduated as a dentist last year. His brother has just enrolled with Susanna at the First Faculty of Medicine on the dental program, and Abdullah or Taranpreet, who graduated as doctors this year from both Pulaski University and Charles University First Faculty. But we have hundreds of graduates working up and down the UK, in the US, much further afield, and this might be you in the future going to study at one of the universities we talked about today, or any one of the Medical Doorway programs. Now, the idea of the presentation today wasn't to labour the point and list out different universities. There to give you a flavour, and we tend to find that more students benefit predominantly from asking questions and parents from asking questions, and that's really the philosophy of what this webinar was about, bearing in mind we couldn't get around all of the schools in the UAE or even all the GEM schools in the UAE when we were there. So if you want more information, we're going to be online for about another 30 minutes now to answer questions that you've got. But alternatively, you can drop us an email or go onto our website and book a consultation. If there's something specific you want to do, that's often the best way to do it. But in the meantime, let's go through the Q&A now, and let's open up some other opportunities for you. And any questions that you've got, we'll be able to address them, both myself, or if they're specific to Charles University, from Susanna from the First Faculty. So thank you for your time, and let's dig into the questions and let's see what you've got. If you've got any questions at all, what I do say, type them in now. We will be going through every single question that you've got, and let's see what's there. So, the first person's asked, I want to go and study in the UK 2024. Do I have to do the UCAT, I should say, in 2023? The answer is yes. Depending on the universities you're applying to, most would require a UCAT. Some require a BMAT, but that's become rarer. So you would have to do the UCAT in 2023. Someone's asked a question here, Susanna, which relates to the First Faculty. Okay. Are the offers from Czech Republic unconditional? Now, this comes from the UK perspective. In the UK, we have conditional offers. So a student's made an offer conditional and getting, say, AAA. In the Czech Republic, offers are unconditional. Now, Susanna, I'm going to kind of answer this question and then dig in, please, as you're a local, if I'm wrong. In the Czech Republic, even for the local students, you have entrance exams to determine even if the local students get admitted to the programs. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So basically what it is, guys, is in the Czech Republic, admission is not determined by your high school diploma. You need to graduate, so you've got the legal ability to go to university, but your choice of being selected is based on the university specific entrance exams. And that's basically what we run in the UAE, as well as Hong Kong and Dubai. It's there to make sure, sorry, Hong Kong and London. It's there to make sure that you've got the level of knowledge needed to start the course at year one, to have the fundamentals by which you need to have in terms of knowledge and skills to make a good stab at the medical course at Charles University. And that's good because each exam is specific to each university.
Yeah, if I may, Ben, just to clarify with that, first of all, I also want to say hi, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here. But you were exactly right. If I can just maybe to put more details in it, passing the entrance the entrance exam is the main requirement for us because we are accepting students from all over the world with different high school diplomas. Passing our entrance exam is the main thing. And as it was explained by Medical Doorway, afterwards, we only need to see your high school diploma and the transcript just to verify that you completed your secondary education and that you are ready to start at university. But passing the entrance exam is the main goal.
Yeah. And as I said, Charles University, their interview is developed now to an MMI style interview to really make sure you've not just got the knowledge by which to study medicine, but you've got the aptitude to actually learn and progress through the medical program, because getting into medical school is the first hurdle. Yeah, it's only the first step. The next step is progressing through the course over the 6 years, and that requires you to be an autonomous, independent learner and plan your studies. And the interviews are there to see if you've got the skills ready to take that step up. Okay. No, someone's asked about the exams. Yes, they are in person. They're not online anymore. There's 1 or 2 programs that still have an online exam, but near enough all of the exams now are back in person. And again, if you want to sit a medical doorway exam, they're all there on the medical doorway website. You can find a full list of them on the website there as well, and the different locations in which we run them in. Someone's asked me about the University of Central Lancashire. We don't work with that program, I'm afraid, so you'll have to speak to the university directly. Someone's asked about our fees. Medical Doorway doesn't actually have any fees. We are directly funded by the universities we work with. The only fees you're going to pay are going to be relevant for the actual application fee charged by a university, if there is one. So let's say if we go back over some of the other programs, Malta and Brunel and SGU, if you apply through Medical Doorway, have a 0 fee. So literally your application will be free of charge. The other fees that you'll be paying for will be the entrance exam fees, but they are there to cover the costs of running the exam. Because if we're running an exam for First Faculty of Medicine, say in London or Hong Kong, we have to fly the academics or the examiners to that location from the Czech Republic, and the exam fees that you pay cover those kinds of costs. But the idea is that it's cheaper than you traveling to the Czech Republic to take the exam there. We run them at times more convenient, both for your education and at times to allow you the times to secure a student visa, but also save you money and hassle in terms of the application and entrance exam. Okay, someone's asked, can you clarify once again what the multiple choice refers to in the entrance examination? Susanna, this is very specific for you. So if you can just discuss a little bit more about what the exam will be for 2023, people will be able to pick up on that there.
Yeah, definitely. I can clarify for the First Faculty of Medicine of Charles University. So for us, the first step of the entrance examination, it's passing a written test. And if I can elaborate on your question, yes, you need to take a test from biology, chemistry, and physics. It's a one test combined together, but it has like 3 parts, each one of them from biology, chemistry, and physics. And the total score, it's calculated from like these 3 parts, but it's a one test combined together. And only if you pass the test, if you fulfill the minimum passing mark, you can continue for the MMIs or for the interviews, which will happen a little bit later on. But for us, all 3 parts, biology, chemistry, and physics, are obligatory. Some other medical faculties at Charles University, I know that sometimes you can switch between physics and math, or there's I think one of the faculties also have logic, or like, yeah.
Like I said, when we've looked at the exam papers, although it says physics, there's a lot of applied mathematics in there. Physics is actually just maths applied to real world situations. So we tend to find that a lot of students find that the mental arithmetic is sufficient to actually negotiate the vast majority of the physics actual paper. But as I said, we do have our preparation program that we've developed, and it's an online program free of charge for the students who apply with Medical Doorway. We've had that, it's an on-demand program. We've had that delivered by a head of physics at a major independent school in the UK. Someone's asked about the recording of this presentation. Yeah, it'll be on YouTube because that's where it's being streamed now, and the recording will be there straight away. So Francesca asked, do we have access to the prep for Charles University as soon as you apply? Once you've paid the exam fees, yes, you'll get access to our Moodle system, so you can start preparing right then.
Yeah, if I may, I can also just comment that for the preparation, always on the website of the individual faculties at Charles University, you can also find some sample tests for the entrance exam. So you can always have a look at it and see, okay, I already know this, I don't have to study or review more, or you will find out that there are some topics that you need to cover during your preparation.
Perfect. Someone said, do you think going to Charles, or going to, for example, Charles University and being able to speak Czech would help you get into the British military as a medical officer? To be honest, it's a very specific question. It's not one I've had before. We do actually work with the US military. We've got US GI Bill funding, actually, for those who are thinking about going into medicine if they've served in the US military. I can't tell you much about the British. What my advice will be is to speak to the Royal Army Medical Corps, or to, the way it works in Britain is a bit different. So each service, the Royal Air Force, the Navy, and the Army have their own actual doctors, and then they'll have certain specialities which are specific in one service that are then lended out to other ones. But if you were thinking about, say, the Army, I'd speak to the Royal Army Medical Corps and see what the procedure will be for becoming a doctor in the British military. From my experience, it's not something you would do straight as from junior medical school. You would come into the Army at a later stage in your career, but that's something for the RAMC specifically I think, Alex, if you send that question over there, you might find more information than what I can offer as a generalist here, because your question is very specialized. Do we need A-level maths to apply to medical school in the UK? No, but what I would say is if you were looking at other options, it can be an advantage, especially for Susanna's program in the Czech Republic. But you don't need A-level maths for most medical schools in the UK, but it would be beneficial if you were going down the entrance exam route for Charles University. I can't answer any questions about Ireland. I don't have the details, I'm afraid. There is a different system for Ireland, including an aptitude test, which is specific for certain candidates. So unfortunately, that's not part of the Medical Doorway scope. But someone's asked, if you want to start university in 2024, what year and month did you do the UCAT? Well, the UCAT runs at specific dates, between specific dates up until the application deadline of October the 15th. So just go to the UCAT website, but make sure you're accessing good preparation for UCAT, because we've seen situations now where anyone with a UCAT below 2,700 is struggling to get into some UK medical schools. Okay, no, unfortunately, universities don't accept AS, which is half an A level. You need to do a full A level. And also, even if someone did, to be quite honest, you wouldn't have the level of knowledge required to succeed in year one. AS is only half an A level. Unfortunately, you will find that both the depth and breadth of your knowledge is not sufficient, and most universities don't accept that. What Susanna mentioned before was a process which is known as general nostrification. So you have to have your qualifications verified by the institution in order to legally enroll at the institution. And if you've got AS, that would not happen, I'm afraid. Someone asked about the shortest period of time to spend studying medicine. Well, it's not about shortest. It's about really becoming a doctor. The shortest program is 5 years. The UK programs are 5 years, but even then, the UK programs being 5 years is provisional registration. You're not a full registered doctor until you've done your foundation year one, your 6th year. Somewhere like Charles University, the internship is effectively the equivalent of FY1. So that's a 6-year pathway. But if you went down the pre-med to med pathway, you'd be doing 7 years. So effectively, you'll be spending between 5 to 7 years before you're a fully qualified doctor, depending on the route that you take. And then can you elaborate if Charles University has accommodation within the campus? Well, Charles University is not a campus university, it's a civic city university, and it has multiple accommodations around the city. But I think, Susanna, can you explain a bit more of how the accommodation is allocated?
Yeah, definitely. And it's in a similar way how you describe it. I will just tell a little bit more about it. You said that, yeah, Charles University, it's not a campus style university because we are located in the beautiful historical center of Prague. And most of our accommodation options are located a little bit more on the outskirts of the city, but all of them are easily accessible by excellent public transportation that we have here in Prague. I also want to say that accommodation in university dormitories is guaranteed for international students if you decide to stay within them. And it's definitely the most affordable option of accommodation in Prague. And we highly recommend it to first-year students. But I wouldn't be afraid using a public transportation to get from the accommodation to the university. Usually it's within like half an hour, 20 minutes limit of getting from the city center to your accommodation if you stay in the dormitories.
I think, Susanna, I was actually talking to a student yesterday from Hong Kong, and we calculated she'd spend what she spends for a month in Hong Kong in public transport will actually cover her for about a year in Prague. There's a special deal for student travel permits, and it's extremely cheap for an annual travel permit. It really is. Some students, however, do prefer to actually look for private accommodation, often after they've arrived. I want to just go over something you've said about housing for if you're not an EU citizen. In fact, you get an accommodation certificate from the university because that's mandatory to be able to apply for your visa. So under Czech law, the university has to provide you an accommodation option so you can actually apply for your visa, because the Czech authorities don't want you arriving in the Czech Republic as an international student and being homeless. So that actually procedure is there both to protect you, but also to make sure that the visa system works effectively as well. Many of our students, if they've moved into the accommodation, will meet friends on the course and then decide to go and live in private accommodation as well. Okay. Would your predicted grades of A2 and a UCAT score not be enough to apply? Well, you can apply in your final year of high school. Yeah, that's not a problem. You just can't get admitted until you've qualified with your A-levels. So everyone who's in their final year of A-levels will only have predicted grades and a UCAT score. So that's quite normal. The main subjects required for medicine. The main two subjects that everyone takes is predominantly biology and chemistry. If you have maths or physics, say you're doing an A-level, then it's an advantage as well to have that, especially if you're applying to somewhere like Charles University, although it's not mandatory. There are some programs around that have some mandatory requirements that varies from one place to the other. But for my advice is definitely biology and chemistry are the core fundamentals for both medicine and for the entrance exams. Maths and physics is an advantage if you have that. If you don't have that, it's simply more time to prepare for the entrance exams, etc. Because the entrance exams in the case of first faculty are there to get you to the interview. And if you're strong at interviews, that's where you're going to excel. But the university needs to assess if you've got the core level of knowledge, because no one wants you to enroll on a program and then struggle. That's really not what anyone in education is about. I think we've dealt with predicted grades in A2. So you can apply with your predicted grades, but when you enroll, obviously you need to have completed your A-levels. Someone says, will these tests not clash with secondary and mock exams? We've timetabled the exams around the different education systems. So in the Emirates, we bring them in the 18th and 19th of March for two reasons, mainly because it's a weekend, firstly. So it's not going to clash with exams at a weekend. It's just before the Ramadan vacation. Also, we run the UK exams before and after A-levels have taken place, and our Hong Kong exams take place 1 week after the IB exams are finished. But all these exams are timetabled for two things. One, to fit around your secondary school exams, and two, to enable you to have enough time to apply for a student visa, as any non-EU student, including British applicants, need to do so. Do you have a foundation program instead of continuing to A2 AS levels? Actually, the problem you've got is it's not so much your knowledge, it's the requirement of the university to make sure that you've got a program which qualifies you to gain admission to the program. And that usually comes from A-level. There are some foundation pathways, but usually that is for students who are not who've not got the level of knowledge to pass the entrance exam, but may still have a high school qualification, which enables them to go to university. The critical thing is the program you qualify for needs to enable you to go to university in the system in which you're applying from. And that's one of the rules of general nostrification. Fantastic question. I like this next question, Suzanne. This is brilliant. How is cadaver experience in the Czech Republic? Do you use a plastic body or like a digital 3D body? You have a real body and many of them. Susanna, do you want to talk a bit more about that? Because
yes,
the Czech Republic is extremely strong on.
Yeah, exactly. It's excellent questions. And a lot of the applicants and students, they are surprised that, or they are excited also that we are still using a real cadavers and real bodies during the anatomy classes that we have. So you will not only, it is 3D body, but it's a real body or that you're going to be working on during your dissections classes. You already start with dissections during your first year. And just right now, our students usually start in December with dissections. You also continue in summer semester with dissections, and you have further dissections in your third and fourth year. During pathology and then clinical anatomy. So you will repeat dissection several times during your studies. As I said, you will be working within a small group of your classmates. You will be working on the same body during some time, and it's an excellent practice how to get to know the body structure, especially during anatomy classes and first year studies. It's really important, and it's also one of the most demanding classes that you will have during your first year.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, it was a great question. As one thing, as someone who used to teach in a UK university, the level of cadaveric experience you get somewhere like Prague is in excess of what I've seen in most other programs, especially in the UK and much further afield. Someone else has asked, is it possible to get accepted into university during March in 2024 before finishing A2? as long as you've finished your A2s, you will be able to enroll. So you might be accepted in March and you'll enroll in September, and you will have finished your A-levels in August. So yes, you would be accepted, but obviously to enroll, you need to have satisfactorily completed your A-levels. That's just simply the difference between selection and enrollment. How many places do you allocate to international students in each of the faculties? Now, this is a little bit of a different type of question depending on where you go. If you're going to somewhere like Brunel in London, it's only for international students, and there are about 60 to 90 seats available. That's the same for QMUL Malta. Nicosia and SGU have more. But in those programs, everyone's international. In the Czech Republic, you are not on the same course as the local students. They're on a separate program, the one taught in Czech language. And I think last year you had around about 200 medical students on the international program in Prague, Susanna. Am I right?
Yes, yes. Usually for us, for our faculty, it's between 150, 200 students for medical program. And as you explained, there is no like cap on on the number of international students, because it's about the program that it's instructed in English. Yeah. So we don't have any percentage of international students or local students that we need to take. If you pass the admission criteria, then you are offered a place, no matter your nationality.
Yeah. So that's when do we have our next sessions? We have sessions all the time. Keep an eye on the Medical Doorway website and our Facebook and our YouTube channels. We do have one coming up in just over 2 weeks for St. George's University, Grenada. So please, do feel free to sign up for that. Emails will be coming out as well. If you've signed up for today's session and your emails on our system, you will receive the information about the upcoming webinars in your inboxes as well. Unfortunately, someone's asked about UCAT and UK universities. Unfortunately, they all need UCAT now. Brunel was the one that didn't need UCAT, and that was for admission in 2022. But for 2023, they need UCAT as well. Someone's asked about Ireland. I can't answer any questions on Ireland, to be honest. I don't know if they still use cadavers, and I don't know how they do their applications. It's a similar system to the UK, and it would be conditional, but obviously the numbers of seats available are smaller. Okay. Brunel is around about just under £45,000 a year. And someone's looking about graduate entry. Now, there are two aspects about graduate entry. You've got 4-year programs, or you can be entered as a graduate. If you apply as a graduate to Charles University, that's fine. You can still be accepted, but you will not have a faster pathway to graduation. You will still study the full 6 years of the program. That's because that's what the medical regulator in the Czech Republic requires. And that's the case, isn't it, Susanna?
Yeah, yes. If you already received some degree in the past, you can ask for the recognition of some of the courses that you attended in the past if they are similar enough to our courses. But in most of the cases, you will still start from the beginning, and you need to go all the way through the studies.
Yeah. Okay. Someone's asked about scholarship. Different universities have different types of scholarships. Nicosia has a scholarship which can be a reduction in the tuition fees of up to 20%. St. George's Grenada has some generous scholarships, but it is one of the more expensive programs. I think in Charles University, there is a form of scholarship, but that's merit-based based on how you study on the program. Now, it's not a huge scholarship from what I understand, Susanna, but it can be something students access.
Yes, definitely. Merit-based scholarships, it's distributed widely or offered to all students depending on your university grades. As you mentioned, so I like to say that it's like a reward for your hard work during your studies. But you should definitely bear in mind to have enough finances to support your studies, as full scholarships are not common in the Czech Republic.
Full scholarships for medicine and English programs are not common anywhere because there's no need to generate demand. That's what most scholarships are actually there to generate interest, I'm afraid. Medicine already has interest by the very nature of being medicine. Someone's asked about getting into university in the UK with a triple B, not to medicine, unfortunately. But you could go onto a pathway program to medicine like the one at Swansea, or look at the other programs which utilize entrance exams like those in the Czech Republic. But with a triple B, getting into direct entry into medicine, I'm afraid, is unrealistic. Then for Charles, after passing the entrance exam, when will the interview process start? I like this question, and this is probably the question we'll finish off with, but it's a little bit different between the two faculties. So for second faculty of medicine, the exam is immediately after the exam. So the exam's in the morning and the interview's in the afternoon. For Charles University for 2023 admission, for that process, you will have the exam and you'll be given the result pretty quickly after the exam, and then you'll have to go back online and then you'll book your interview for prescribed dates, which the university have prepared. So as I said, there are multiple interviewers involved in the interview. Once you've booked it online, what will then happen is you'll log in and then have your interview on the date that you've allocated. I think that's the case for next year, isn't it, Susanna?
Yes, it's exactly like that. If you want, the medical doorway can definitely provide you with more detailed information, like when the interview would be scheduled. There will be shortly, you can do them shortly after the written test, and they're going to be probably repeated every 2 weeks during the summer months. Of course, depends when you write the written test first, and then we can move forward with the interview date. Yeah,
my advice is have the exam around as early as possible for you as an individual. So we're advising all of our students based in the Middle East, that region, to take the exam in March, because getting appointment slots at the embassies can be difficult. We actually have got agreed with the embassy in Abu Dhabi to actually have days of protected appointment slots, which are geared around the exam date of the 15th, 16th of March. So about 8 to 12 weeks after that, we will have our dates at the embassy protected. We've got the same agreement in London as well, and Hong Kong is a very straightforward process. So my advice is the exam earlier as possible. If you are applying with a passport that doesn't allow you entry to the Czech Republic visa free, my advice is let's get the exam out of the way by April to give you enough time to progress through the visa application process. Someone said that you can enter 5 universities application with the UCAS. Well, you can only apply through UCAS for 4 programs in the UK. The 2 British programs we've talked about today, you apply with Medical Doorway. Both QMUL, Malta and Brunel both require UCAT. And someone's asked about a score on UCAS. I'm assuming you mean UCAT, not UCAS, to get into medical school in the UK. It varies from one institution to the other. There's not a set level for each that covers all universities. Each university in the UK has its autonomy to dictate what its UCAT score will be, and we have those scores for QMUL and Brunel, and when your application comes through, we'll assess that to determine if you are eligible. So that's quite a lot of questions we've gone through. We'll go over 36 questions there, Susanna, so there's quite a lot of good questions, and I very much like the one about cadaveric study. It's one to see, which I really enjoy seeing. But let's just take a look quickly and just see if there are any more questions that have popped up on social media where we've been streaming as well. Okay, now the same questions that came up on Facebook and YouTube that got asked in the Q&A feature, so we've dealt with those. If there's any last minute questions, we'd schedule this for about an hour, and we are coming up to that period now. So if you've got any last minute questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A session. Other than that, it's extremely easy to apply. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just quickly, over the last few moments, go to the Medical Doorway website, and I'm going to share my screen with you and show you how you can apply very easily to any of the programs that we've talked about today. So I'll share my screen. Let's go to the Medical Doorway website. There we go. So this is the Medical Doorway website, and for the Czech programs, depending on where you're running your exams, the 2 ways to do it is either click Apply Now, which is nice and here on the left-hand side of the screen. Alternatively, you can click Universities. If we go to the first Faculty of Medicine, we have our blue button with our central application form, and then you can choose from there where you want to sit the exams in the UK, the UAE, Hong Kong, or at the university in the Czech Republic. We have students coming on the system who do want to take the exam locally, because if they live close to the Czech Republic, they can take the exam at the universities. But for those, perhaps if you want to take the exam in the UAE, you simply fill this form in, hit submit, and then we'll process your application from there. But if you go to our master application portal, you'll see all the universities you can apply to our Medical Doorway there. And then we would go through each of those applications. None of them takes more than 5 or 10 minutes to complete. It's very simple data. And then any extra things we need, like personal statements, etc., we would then request from you over email. So there are no more questions. I want to say thanks for those that attended. The recording is on YouTube, and will stay on YouTube from now until whenever YouTube decides never to run again. In addition, we will drop an email out to everyone who registered who perhaps couldn't make it today with a link as well. I want to say thank you to Susanna for giving up your late afternoon. It's now, 5 p.m, so you're going to get the chance to go and enjoy a hockey match, I think.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It was my pleasure to be here.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. And again, do keep an eye out for the recording. If you need any information, medicaldoorway.com, or drop us an email, or you can even book a Zoom call with us on an individual basis on the website. And until then, stay safe, and we'll see you in our next webinar in the middle of December.